This beautiful Mazda RX-8 has a huge issue. And out of over 300 people, no one wanted to touch this thing, let alone fix it, because of one devastating reason. Well, except for the idiot who's sitting right in front of you.
I've always wanted an RX-8 myself, so to have one at my shop and being able to work on one is definitely a treat. But there's a ginormous catch. Engine very bad.
Okay, so at the minute the RX-8 does not run. And there's a very specific reason for that, which I'm gonna get into in a minute. But first we need to check what the problem is, what's the damage. And before I'm pulling out this entire engine and doing all of this work, I first wanna look inside of the engine with one of these.
Basically, just a small camera that allows me to look at the engine's internals without taking everything apart. RX-8s are equipped with a so-called rotary engine, and it works totally different from your regular motor. In a rotary engine, you don't have any valves or pistons, but you have two of these spinning Dorito-shaped rotors spinning inside a housing. But like a regular engine, it also sucks in air and fuel, compresses it, and ignites it. Just in a different form factor. And with one spark plug removed, we can now look inside the engine with the borescope. And what we can see is not surprising. Filth and gunk everywhere.
Now don't worry, you do not need to be a mechanic to understand any of this, but let me just explain to you what I'm actually looking for. You can see this piece of metal. This is basically your rotor housing, and ideally this rotor housing would be very clean, free of any deeper gouges, scratches, whatever. I can't really make out 100% if these are deeper scratches or if these are just normal wear and tear marks. Yeah, so I guess we're doing the inevitable.
Whenever you're doing something as involved as pulling an engine, it's best to keep everything organized as well as you can to make sure you won't lose anything. But the most important question remains, why are we pulling the engine in the first place? And why did no one want to fix this RX-8?
You can see this little reservoir right here with this mysterious red liquid in there. This is actually two-stroke oil. This is supposed to lubricate the inside of the engine while it's spinning at like 9,000 RPM. So the main issue here with this RX-8 in particular is that the owner forgot to top the oil up because he didn't know anything about rotary engines.
And without getting too technical, let me just tell you, running an engine without lubrication is probably the most fatal mistake you can do. But in the owner's defense, this RX-8 is his first ever car, and since rotary engines are, well, just getting more rare by the minute, I can't really blame him for not knowing anything about it. All I know is that he loves this car to death, and since the rotary community is getting smaller and smaller, I think we should all help each other out, which is why I said yes to fixing his car. With all the ancillaries such as the intake manifold, alternator and water pump off the engine, I can now begin ripping everything apart, starting by removing the oil pan. A rotary is sandwiched together by 18 long tension bolts, which need to be taken out before reverse burgering this baby and taking a first look inside. This is the moment of truth. Thank you for making it this far into the video. If you're enjoying it, please consider subscribing.
What a productive day. We finally got the engine out. I disassembled everything. We got our two extremely filthy rotors out of the engine as well. Gonna have to clean these up very nicely. But the most important question is, can we save this thing? Now, for those who do not know how any of this works, don't worry, I gotcha. This is a so-called apex seal, and this would sit right up here inside the rotor. This rotor spins around inside this housing, meaning that this apex seal naturally scrapes along this chrome-plated surface. Now, the problem is, if this chrome-plated surface has any damage to it, any deeper scratches, gouges, the engine is done.
So what's the big issue with this RX-8? The owner has been driving it for about 2 weeks without two-stroke oil. meaning the apex seals have been scraping along this housing without lubrication for a long time, possibly causing some fatal wear.
This is just in a wonderful shape. This looks very nice, and I believe that we can definitely save this engine, judging by this front housing.
But as I said in the beginning, this engine has two housings, and the second one...
Oh, damn it. We can see these very, very deep scratches, which you can even hear. I think it's not going to pick up on the microphone, but yeah, these are going to create an issue. Because due to the fact that this little apex seal right here is constantly scraping around the surface, this will pick up the exact same pattern the rotor housing shows, meaning that if there's a scratch in the rotor housing, there will be a scratch in the apex seal causing compression issues. Anyways, way too technical. I'll have to get on the phone with the owner and see what he wants to do.
3 days later.
All right, ladies and gents, the owner has spoken and he told me I should get a new housing. Well, as you can see, I got it right here. It's not brand new, it is used, but this is in way better condition than the old housing. It doesn't have any deeper scratches. It is definitely a little worn, but it's much better, and I can confidently put this thing into the engine without worrying about, well, it losing compression or anything like that. Now, as you can tell, this thing is really nasty. It's definitely on the dirty side.
And this goes not only for our new rotor housing, but also, to be honest, for the rest of the engine. So we'll need to clean it up very well before reassembling everything. I'm starting off with the two rotors, which, to be honest, are the worst ones I've ever seen. They're covered in a thick layer of carbon buildup, which I can only remove with a soft wire wheel and a hand drill. Cleaning the rotors properly is the most crucial part about rebuilding a rotary engine, as it houses many moving parts. And, well, these moving parts need to be able to move freely and not get caught up on any debris. After a whole lot of work, everything is as good as new and the engine is ready for assembly. I will later clean the outside of the engine once everything's put back together. You remember me talking about these moving parts inside the rotor? Exactly. Now is the time to actually install them. This is called packing the rotor. This is a very delicate process. If I mess up anything during this process, this entire engine build will be down the drain. I need to be extremely careful, as packing the rotor includes manually cutting the side seals to size while staying within a 0.1 millimeter tolerance. That is about the thickness of a human hair. If I cut away only a little too much, this will ruin this entire mission. And on top of that, I will not only have to cut 1 or 2 side seals to this extremely tight tolerance, but actually I have to grind a total of 12 seals to the exact spec of 0.1 millimeter, without even one being out of spec. But after hours of work and careful measuring, I can seal the deal with some Vaseline. This stuff simply sticks everything together to make sure none of the seals fall out. And with everything in place, we are now on the home stretch. Now, I just need to put the entire engine back together, making sure I don't mess up a single torque spec, miss any electrical connector, or forget about any of the 1000 vacuum lines.
Alright everyone, it is actually time for the first start now. Now we'll find out if the past few weeks have been worth it, or if this is just a ginormous fail. I've already primed the oil pump and now it is time to actually fire it up. In neutral and and let's go. That sounds like the battery is going out. Okay, so I've just put the battery of the FC into the RX-8 and I'm really hoping that this will solve the issue. I've also noticed that I totally forgot to connect up one coil. So anyways, let's just try. Come on, he wants to go. Please just do it. It wants to go, like it wants to go. I think the spark plugs may be fouled or something.
At this point, I didn't know what to do anymore, so my dad joined me with a booster pack for the battery, as it was already getting weak from all of the cranking. But even that didn't solve the problem, leaving me with a non-running RX-8.
It is 2 weeks later. I just came back from my South Korea trip. The RX-8 still doesn't run, but we got brand new spark plugs. Because just look at this old one. It's even missing like the little pin on top. That cut was literally the most useless cut ever because you can't even tell the difference that the RX-8 now has new spark plugs. But hopefully we feel the difference by finally being able to start this thing.
But of course, since it's a Rotary, it's best to open all the doors and windows because it will smoke out your shop when starting it, period. Speaking of starting, when I was cranking it over and over again, I sadly flooded the engine with fuel, and while I was following the deflooding procedure, it actually started for a few short seconds. However, I noticed that it only started because that time my dad hooked up a jumper pack to the battery, making the starter motor spin faster. So I'm now trying the same thing once again. At this point, everything started making sense to me. I suspected the old starter had already seen better days and my aggressive cranking probably didn't help. To me, it sounded like the starter was too weak to turn the engine over fast enough, so we now got another motor which is not only brand new but much stronger than the old one.
Okay, so at this point I don't even want to say it anymore, but this is now the moment of truth. We got a new starter installed, we got new spark plugs, we got basically everything new. Because guys, if it doesn't start right now, the only thing I'm suspecting that could be the issue would be the coil packs, that they, well, just are not strong enough anymore to produce a proper spark. But other than that, I really don't know what could be the issue. Okay, neutral. It runs! Yeah, it runs! Oh my god! Yeah, that's all the Vaseline and everything that's just burning off. It runs! I think it, like... Look at the smoke! That's why you always open windows. Like all of the windows when starting Rotary. Wait, let me check. Seems like everything's fine so far. We got no leaks. I think I need to drive it out the shop real quick. Wait. Oil is checked. Coolant is bled. I checked over everything, the clutch pedal is adjusted, and this is the first drive of the rebuilt RX-8. And I gotta say, this thing, so far it drives very, very well. And it sounds very, very healthy, which I'm very glad about. The only thing I need to do now is drive this thing for about 1,000 kilometers just to break in the apex seals and to ensure that the compression is good. Guys, judging by how well this drives, I am more than happy to do these 1,000 kilometers of break-in. This makes me want to get an RX-8 myself so bad. And guys, there you have it, a running RX-8. I really didn't think that the starter motor would make this big of a difference. So, in conclusion, we have actually saved this RX-8, which literally no one out of 300 people in like this WhatsApp Rotary community, literally no one wanted to even touch it. I've also texted with the owner. He is extremely happy and I think he will definitely have much fun with this thing in the future. Anyways, I'm gonna leave you for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and join me on my next adventure. See ya.